Hey, what's up, guys? Your boy Ruff here, and today I kind of want to talk about people's training and the techniques of RIR or RPE. And if you guys don't know what this is, RIR is reps in reserve, RPE is rate of perceived exertion. And basically, I kind of want to talk about this just because after training so many people, throughout the world and learning from guys like Joe Bennett, John Meadows, I found out that it may not be the best technique to use for newer athletes, even some intermediate athletes. And the reason I say this is I've trained so many people now that where, like, for an example, I trained a guy in Hong Kong just a couple months ago. We were doing squats, and so I told him he needs to go to failure, right? So most of these things are based on RIR, RP, or basically based on you know failure. So our reps in reserve do one, two less reps than failure. So basically, I told him to do go to failure, and I want him to fail within the 5 to 8 rep range. So he does a couple, he does a couple reps, and around 8 he was gonna stop, and I'm like, he's like I can't do anymore. I was like, and I'm looking at his form, I'm looking at his velocity, how fast he's going up and down. I'm like, dude, keep going. And he does a few more reps, he does a few more reps, and at a certain point he just was in so much, he was just in so much pain. I was like, all right, you can stop. But at that point he did 10 extra reps, so he thought his failure point was at 8 when actually he did 18, and he actually could have did even more than that. So people are their view of what failure is so skewed to that those scales are very, they're not useful whatsoever to certain people, and especially to a lot of beginners. So definitely, I think when people are trying to figure out something to do, and I understand that a lot of people, they preach this thing, and to a certain extent, if that works for that person, that's totally fine. Most people who preach this RR are people who've been doing this for decades. They've trained to a certain point where they know they can actually reach that point of failure, and they know where that is. And to those people, kudos. But I had to really stop doing that method, because I would watch videos from my clients, and I look at it and I'm like, yo, then that didn't seem like a hard set whatsoever. And so instead, so what you have to do with a lot of times when you're working with people who are newer, lower volume doesn't tend to work for a lot of newer people, what I found out. Just because, like I said, they can't take those things as far. So what you have to do with a lot of those people is you have to add in that volume. And it's kind of like a funny scale, right? Because you start them off at a certain point. Let's say they're here, they're like training for a year, and then their volume is like, I'm just gonna throw it, like, let's say they're doing like a medium amount of volume or whatever. But as they start to progress, they can have a lot more volume. They can handle a lot more. But at a certain point, they're able to start to take, sets a little bit further. They're starting to be able to recruit those neural units to push themselves a bit further. They're able to recognize where they are, and then their volume actually starts to decrease because they're able to push themselves a little bit further. So that's kind of like a scale, like beginner, intermediate, and then like advanced training is way down here with volume, which is pretty cool. If you guys have ever seen Pumping Iron, Arnold says this, and at the time you don't really understand. You think he's just being cocky, or you think he's just saying something cool, but it's actually a lot of scientific, a lot of thinking behind what he says. And Arnold says, like, when I go into the gym, I could do one set of curls and have a better workout than most people do in the world. And that's a very true thing. And you don't realize this until you've been training longer and longer. And even myself, I have some of my old leg days up where I was doing 8 sets on squats, and I sit back and I look at that now. I'm like, dude, I couldn't even imagine doing that now. I do maybe 1 to 3 working sets on squats, and I'm done. And it's not because I'm not pushing myself as hard. It's just each set I'm able to push harder. Each rep I'm able to get more out of now, because I'm more aware of my body, more aware of where I need to push and how I need to. I'm more aware internally of what's going on with my body, and I honestly think that is the biggest factor right there. That people, newer people who start this, they're not internally aware of what's going on. They're not able to recognize different feelings and different things happening within the body, and there's no way they can push themselves or use an RPE scale or an RIR scale and think that okay, this is where I need to be. This is one step from failure because they're so new they barely know what failure is, right? So that's just my opinion on that. If you're a newer guy and you want to uh, track something, definitely definitely don't. I don't think the RIR scale is a great idea. I would rather have someone to take each set to failure, and if they're not recovering very well, then to adjust their sets, their working sets. So you would say, okay, I'm not recovering quite as well. I'm doing 4 sets, not recovering too well. Let me do 3 sets instead, right? And that's the kind of way you can kind of regulate what's going on from workout to workout. I find that works a lot better with people. If they're recovering very, very well, you can add a set, but I don't like to add too many sets. So what you can also do is start to add some intensifiers, some drop sets, some rest pauses, some things of that nature. And when you start to add things like that, people who can't get to failure, who just because they're not mentally in that on that level yet, you add a drop set in there, they're pretty much gonna they're gonna reach that point of metabolic stress where it's to failure like it needs to be. And another way to kind of help people reach their maximal level is to obviously progressively overload. A lot of people they're scared to add weight, or they think they need to add a whole like plate every single time they get to the gym. Let's say, oh well, I couldn't do. They go by these big increments. You don't need to do that. So you don't need to do like 225, and then you're like, oh well, I'm just gonna do 315 the next time. Add a 5 plate on there. Add a 10. Add a 25. You don't need to make these big increments. I would suggest you make smaller increments more frequently, and that'll definitely help you progress a lot quicker. And on top of that, I've had a training log. I had a logbook video a while back. A logbook is definitely one of the best ways to keep progressing in the gym, to keep focused in the gym. So let's say, for instance, and like to be honest with me, when I first started using a logbook, I was so far aware, even myself. And this was a year ago, the prep before the Toronto Pro 2018. I was able to progress and not take any deload days for about 8 months straight. So that tells you how far away from where I need to be. Even my own mental state, how far and how far I was away from being where I need to be. Where I was able to add weight each and every week for about 8 months. I went from like the single arm row. That's the one I remember the most. The single arm hammer strength row. I was able to do 2 plates for 5 to 8. By the end of it, I maxed the machine out with I think it's 5 or 6 plates on that hammer strength row. I do maybe 10 to 12 now on that machine, so I can't even really use that machine much anymore because it's just a little easy for me. So um, definitely, guys, get a logbook. Progressively overload each and every week. You either want to be adding, 5 plate, and even if you're at a point where you say, okay, I can't add, I can't add those big increments anymore. Invest in yourself. They have half-pound plates and things like that. If you guys have the hypertrophy app, you've seen us use those little blue and red baby weights. They even have magnets for dumbbells. So if you're doing curls, and it's very, very beneficial for those any exercise using dumbbells with curls or side raises where the muscles are a little bit smaller, so it's a little bit weaker. So you're not gonna be able to make the big leaps and gains you do with like legs, back, and chest. So you kind of need to invest in something like that, in those quarter-pound magnets, things like that at the gym. Uh, just like you invest in anything else, guys, invest a little bit of time and money into yourself for your training. But definitely, guys, definitely a logbook is one of the biggest things I can tell you guys to get to help improve and to grow a little bit quicker. But that's kind of my take on those reps and reserves and training to failure as a newer athlete. Obviously, as you get further into bodybuilding and you become more and more advanced, you're able to take things a little bit further and further. Then I would suggest you can start taking, if you want to, start doing sets that aren't quite to failure, then maybe doing a couple more. But in the beginning, guys, I definitely think you should just try to push it and push it. Obviously, to get a little bit more specific, this isn't for a brand new athlete to take everything to failure. They're gonna be wrecked. They're not used to training whatsoever. This is someone who's been training maybe 6 months to a year, who has a little bit of experience, 6 months to a year, all the way up until let's say 6 months to 3 years. You know, uh, and those are the people I'm really kind of talking to right now, the beginner slash intermediate people there. And yeah, guys, I hope you liked the video. Until next time, peace. Like, share, subscribe. I'm gonna probably doing a lot more of these casting couch. I didn't realize how much this looks like a casting couch right now, but I've been doing a lot more videos just chilling out because I lost my video guy in the production or whatever. Even though he was new, I got a lot of complaints about the swinging. We fixed that, but then he's like, oh, I gotta go to college and stuff. And I'm like, well, I can't tell you not to go to college. So definitely gonna be doing a lot more of this right here. A little bit less production, just talking to you guys. But yeah, until next time, peace.